everybody. How's it going today? Happy Wednesday to you. As we are, as I put in the description, kind of in the quiet before the storm, still waiting on the combine, but also re-signing decisions, free agency looming in the middle of March. But I will say, at least on that front, news is starting to develop about which teams may actually exercise some of their tag options. We are not going to see the Packers in all likelihood exercise a tag. I'd be shocked if the transition tag or franchise tag got used on anyone. They don't have a free agent of that caliber. But we are beginning to hear some murmurings about like Antoine Winfield Jr. probably going to get franchise tagged by the Bucs. And then today, reporting came out that it looks like Xavier McKinney of the New York Giants very well might get transition tagged, which I at least was not thrilled to hear about, as he was quickly becoming my top safety out there after Winfield. And yeah, that one doesn't look quite so likely. So hello to you out there. We got some comments ready. Let's dive right in. Janelle, hello to you, Janelle. Hi, John. What position will the Packers select at 25? Historically, they have drafted edges and DL in the first round. Yeah, Goot certainly has a preference towards, let's call them high value or highly paid positions too. I don't see DL this year. Edge is a possibility if the right edge comes into play. I still got to lean on the secondary, though, because he has also shown a tendency to go after corners in the first round as well. I think given the needs, I think the numbers in this draft, kind of top heavy versus bottom heavy, where the really elite athletes are going to go, I don't know. It just feels like this is a year where first round and corner just seem to sync up. And that's going to be my guess as of right now. But there are other positions that could sneak in. Rocket needs Joe John grow that mohawk. Hey, I know it's getting a little long. I got to trim some stuff down. Scott, hello to you as well. Hey, Scott. So as some more people are coming in, just thought I would go over news as well. One, Aaron Hill has been hired as the new strength and conditioning coordinator coach. They kind of go by different titles for the Green Bay Packers. He was the assistant with the San Francisco 49ers, but now is coming on over. And there were some nice quotes out there, if you happen to go find them, from current 49er players, what they had to say about him, all very complimentary. So certainly seems like a strong hiring for the Packers by all accounts from what we know, of course. And of course, the end goal there being, let's stop injuring our hamstrings, especially, I think, has to be an emphasis in that hire. Scott saying, maybe use one for a kicker. Scott, you know what? I liked so many of the draft prospects last year, all right? I'm not willing to say I was wrong on Carlson yet, but it doesn't look great. And they did bring in competition for him already, so we'll see how the offseason goes. I'm eager to get to training camp and see how that goes. So one thing that I did want to go over that got asked actually on a different episode that they asked if I could answer on a live because they think they might not be here. This is from Martin. And he basically asked, hey, lots of teams utilize rotations on the defensive line. The Packers are one of the only ones that do it on the offensive line. And even then, it's kind of rare. Why? Why do you see teams so willing to switch out personnel on the D line, but not necessarily the offensive line? And I got to tell you, there's not really a clear-cut answer, but from what I could kind of find, it's just purely continuity. On the offensive line, you want to have much more confidence in the guys next to you that you know exactly how they are going to move their body on a given play. Whereas defensively, it's much more like hit the gap. You're pursuing downhill as opposed to potentially backpedaling. And from that standpoint, continuity isn't as important as it is on the offensive line. So really, cohesion is the determining factor there. So I hope that answers your question, Martin. Hey, Steve, hello to you. How you doing? I think there's a good chance we trade out of the first, depending on how the board falls. Teams who are looking for a quarterback will trade up in the first round, and we can pick up more picks to move around. Certainly. Actually, Connie, if you're out there, Connie sent me a mock draft she did earlier that had the Packers dropping back a few picks. I've yet to give her my thoughts, but and then they picked up pick 100, so an additional third-round pick coming into play. Something like that is certainly possible. Especially given where so much of the bulk of this draft lies. Now, I don't see them massively going from like pick 25 to dropping back to 40. No, it would be like 25 to 30, maybe early 30s, if they are confident that there's multiple options for where they're really looking at. It's totally possible. At the same time, though, they do already have a lot of picks in this draft. So maybe pick up a 2025 selection instead of 2024. But still, I think trading back is certainly possible. But I will say too, Brian Gutekunst has shown, I would say, a higher tendency to actually go up and get his guy. I don't think he's going up this year, but he's shown a tendency to go up and get his guy. When he falls in love with somebody, he'll be aggressive about it. And we'll see. Maybe that could be this year. Solar Miner saying first linebacker or fourth cornerback. Well, in regards to, corner, I wouldn't say any addition is immediately going to slide into fourth corner. Of course, you got Jair, right? Like he's your number one corner, no doubt about it. But Stokes is admittedly a pretty large question mark at this point. Of course, yeah, you got hamstrings. Those should be able to be healed from, right? But that leg injury was no joke. I mean, he had a couple of plates put in, and I mean, it was a lot. So Stokes is a bit of a question mark. And then you've got Valentine, who did perform. I rattled off a couple stats the other day about just how good he was as a rookie. But do you completely count on that as well? So what I'm saying is adding a corner at the top end of the draft realistically adds another high-end athlete, hopefully a corner you've got a lot of faith in for the future, into the mix at corner. And that really does nothing to speak of the fact of, unless they sign Keyshawn Nixon, they just straight up don't have a slot corner, which we've been talking about a ton lately about how like that is a starting position and it needs to be treated like it. So to add a top fold corner, one with inside versus outside versatility, would go a long way to helping the defense overall. In terms of linebackers, we have yet to see what they're going to do with Devondre Campbell. Like, really? I know it feels an awful lot like they may move on from him with a post-June 1st declaration, but that's no sure thing. And maybe they decide that they want his veteran experience in amongst the 4-3 backers. Or maybe just because they feel like Quay isn't a perfect match to be the Sam linebacker, or McDuffie isn't the perfect match to be the Sam linebacker. You need someone to be on the strong side. And maybe Campbell, is he slowing down a little bit, still a bulky line? Maybe they like him for that spot. So like we just don't know enough yet. Certainly, I'm on board with adding a high draft selection for an off-ball linebacker. But we're going to have to see how exactly high they prioritize it because so much of it hinges on Campbell. Let's see. Scott saying with new defense, wouldn't middle linebacker be the biggest concern? Yeah, kind of the same thing that I was just saying. I mean, you figured they got 2/3 of their starting linebackers ready. They seem more than ready to elevate McDuffie to a regular starting position. With that being said, McDuffie only has 1 year left in his contract. Quay, I think, is actually a much better match for this defense than what Joe Barry was asking him to do anyway. So I would anticipate seeing a level of improvement from his play. They could re-sign Eric Wilson to a, bottom of the barrel type contract, get him back again for special teams and some 4-3 experience. Is it a huge need? Yes, absolutely. The other thing that I would say is just given how the draft is falling, it looks like a lot of the top off-ball linebackers could, at this point right now, look like round 2. You got Edrin Cooper, you've got Peyton Wilson, even Trotter, who a lot of people really like. A lot of them are going to be round 2, maybe even falling into round 3 style selection. So even if it is the bigger concern, you're probably not spending a first-round pick on an off-ball linebacker this year. Peter, bonjour. Is it silly to think that Goot could surprise us and eventually draft a wide receiver in the first round if Brian Thomas Jr., Roman Dunze, or Troy Franklin is available at pick 25? Could it happen? Certainly. Like I was talking about, like Goot falls in love with people all the time. Franklin, we're going to have to see exactly what his measurements are. I won't be shocked if Franklin actually falls outside of their thresholds. If it's a size issue with Franklin, we're going to have to see. Certainly a blazer, though. In terms of other wide receivers that maybe he falls in love with, I mean, it's possible, certainly. But they're probably going to have much larger priorities on the board. And keep in mind, too, the wide receiver room is locked up for a long time already. Watson only entering year 3. He's got 2 years left in his deal. Dobbs, same deal. Toure, if you want to continue to factor him in, he's still got 2. But then everyone else, I mean, Reed, Wicks, they've all got 3 years left on their deals. Wide receivers pretty well secure. Although, yeah, they could still use a top end guy. It would just be surprising to see it be this year. Rocket Knees, thinking about last season, it was fun watching Jordan play. Remember, John, I was the one preaching patience early. Yes, that's true. You, my witness. I think Packers will select another QB late this year. Totally possible. I mean, keep in mind, Ron Wolf back in like the late 90s was constantly, even though they had Favre, constantly was picking one quarterback a year. That's how they got Ty Detmer, Mark Brunell, Aaron Brooks. All those guys they eventually traded and turned into future draft capital, eventually at higher rounds. Ted Thompson did a little bit of it, but not nearly as much. Wouldn't shock me at all to see some kind of late round pick added in. Maybe they carry 3 quarterbacks this year. I think they do really like Sean Clifford for a lot more than just his play on the field. But ultimately, we're just going to have to see. But yeah, in terms of late round QB, I'm with you, Rocket Knees. 100% I can see that. Steve, I really like Edgerrin Cooper and Tyler Nubin. I hope these two can be our first 2 picks if we stay at 25 and with port 41. Yeah, I mean, at least according to like PFF's mock simulator right now, both of them, I should say, are generally available in round 2 in the Packers go. I do really like Edgerrin Cooper. I think he could be a very good mix for the defense. I also really like Peyton Wilson. And I know all the things about his medical history. I know he's a little older. It would be a very unconventional Packer pick. But like he's kind of up in that tier with Cooper for me. And then Nubin, I do really like Nubin. I am a little leery. We're going to have to see how he tests. I'm a little concerned that some of his speed is going to come in at like Brian Branch type levels of speed, in which case he very well might find himself off the board for the Green Bay Packers. We know how strict they are with their thresholds, and Nubin, we're going to have to see where exactly he tests. Keep in mind, too, Combine coming up starts basically next week, middle part of the next week, and we're going to start seeing a lot more info coming in, and we're going to have a lot more viable of a Packers board then. We're actually going to see. I know one person that I wanted to talk about that has come up in the comments on other episodes a couple times has been Mike Sainistrel, the nickel slot corner out of Michigan. People have mentioned him, but he may not meet the Packers thresholds. I mean, right now it's believed that he's like 5'10", 180, and that's under their thresholds by like a solid 15, 20 pounds for the cornerback position. And that's the kind of thing that we just don't know yet until really they test. Scott, I'm seeing they're figuring Cooper will probably go in the first. In terms of Edgerrin Cooper, off-ball linebacker, I can't say that I've seen that much at all. I guess it's possible if he's revered as like the unanimous number 1 off-ball linebacker, but that's just not something I've seen a whole lot as of yet. Steve, John, what running back do you like the most in this class? I like Trey Benson, Blake Corum, and Jonathan Brooks, despite his ACL injury. Yeah, I'm with you on Brooks for sure. And Green Bay may be the right kind of situation for Brooks. Like, yes, if they let Dylan walk in free agency, then they need a number 2. Right now. Maybe Emmanuel Wilson can do it, but it's still a pretty large hole in the depth chart. Maybe Green Bay is the perfect situation for a guy like Brooks, who may still be trying to come back from that ACL injury a bit once we get to training camp, or he's still getting his wheels under him a little bit. Maybe Green Bay is the right kind of situation because he can take his time and actually learn and then come back when he's ready. Plus, I think there's some aspects of his game that have become kind of underrated, such as pass catching. I do like him a lot. We'll just kind of have to see what kind of value there is with him, but he's probably my top running back in this class. Beyond that, though, I saw Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports. He did a big write-up on Braylon Allen, the Wisconsin running back. So, like, I'm kind of mixed on him, but Nate Tice certainly seemed higher than I was. If they're looking for someone in the Dylan mold, someone a little bit more sturdy, let's say, a little stockier, then we may see him too. Solar Miner, I'm in love with Powers. Getting line for so much may make our defense unimportant. Yeah, and I know you mentioned him one other time too. I would just say he's probably the top interior offensive lineman in this draft. Like certainly the top center. I would just be really, really surprised. And I'm sorry, Solar Miner. I would be very surprised if the Packers went that direction in round one. And I think he's your typical, there seems to be one every draft, a center who sneaks into the back end of the first round. And that's just not the way the Packers have generally operated, is picking that interior offensive lineman in the first round. They like to nab them in like rounds 3, 4, 5. And I think that that's a lot more likely. If we see the Packers go with an offensive lineman in rounds 1, 2, it probably is going to be a tackle. I know Josh Myers was picked in round 2, but that was like they needed to get someone in there for Corey Linsley, so it's not quite their norm. I'm sorry. I'd be pleasantly surprised, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Hey, Dan, John, could you explain what an off-ball linebacker is? Yeah, generally they're just referred to as, like most times, a 4-3 linebacker, if you're talking about 4-3 base, is an off-ball linebacker. Or in 3-4, sometimes you're inside linebackers. Basically, all it really means is an off-ball linebacker, to put it super simple, is someone who is not going to be playing. They're not an edge rusher. It's generally someone who, after the ball is snapped, is going to drop backwards into a zone coverage, maybe even some man, whatever. But they're playing off the ball. They're not coming up on the line. They're dropping away into coverage. Whereas edge rushers may creep up onto the line and be closer on the ball. So it's just some terminology to kind of differentiate between like an edge rusher versus a different style of linebacker who's dropping back. That's all it really is. Let's see, Peter, if you were GM and you could get one key player through next free agency, who would that guy be and why? Are we talking anyone or people that are assuredly going to be available? Because I got to tell you, like, my number ones for a while has been Antoine Winfield. I think he is the honey badger incarnate, and they could really use that. But it looks almost certain that he's going to be franchise tagged by Tampa. I said at the very top, I really like Xavier McKinney from the Giants. And it looks almost certain now that he's, at least been reported today, that he's going to get transition tagged by the Giants, which takes the Packers out as well. In terms of like the position, though, I would tell you, Peter, my number one free agent target position-wise would be safety. Because even if they address it at the top of the draft, it still needs someone. You still need some kind of vet presence back there. And that's where a lot of like Jordan Fuller of the Rams, formerly of the Rams, comes into play. He's played under Hafley. He refers to Hafley as the Wizard. It seems like a very, very natural match in Green Bay. Plus, he's that center fielder type that they really don't have. Although I will say I think Rudy Ford could be the center fielder if he got the chance. So at the very least, without like naming specific names, I'm going to go safety as the position. My dream would be Antoine Winfield Jr., but all dreams die eventually, I guess. All right, Steve saying, oh, yeah, I want to let everyone know that Spencer Rattler is the best quarterback in this class, and I hope we would draft him in like the 5th or 6th. Steve, what I've seen a lot is like Rattler going in the 3rd and 4th. I mean, who really knows at this point? But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed, certainly. And to say that he is the best quarterback in this class over Caleb Williams, over May, over Jay, that is a statement, my friend, an impassioned one, Steve. But you do you? Rocket is saying Goot is getting better with more experience. I trust him after the first round. I think his hit rate is certainly increasing. But even if you go back to his first draft, I mean, his very first draft, they basically traded back to get a first round pick the next year and then traded up and got Jair Alexander. I mean, his very first draft was a freaking masterclass. And then 2020 came about. He drafted Jordan Love, drafted a couple usable players whose time is now ending, but guys who haven't necessarily made large impacts. And then 2021 happened, which rough, very, very rough. So I'm not sure that I would say, in my opinion, that Goot's gotten better as time has gone on. I think what happened is you've got like a wave. Like he started out strong, slid down with 2 below average drafts. So you could say that below average to bad. Let's just be honest. And is back on the ascension. His last 2 drafts look incredibly promising. I mean, especially his last year. That just looks like a home run, no doubt. Steve saying, John, is there any chance you and Claudia can walk into the Packers war room and say, no, we don't like that guy in the Packers team, and tell you you're both like, no. I will tell you though, man, if I could get any kind of security clearance into the war room though, let me in. I will Kevin Costner that to the end of days, man. I would love the war room. All right, everybody. So just to give you a heads up, looking ahead, we'll see, hang out for like 2 more minutes, see if any more comes in. But as I said, Combine starts really next week. We're going to start seeing more and more numbers pouring in, workouts next week. Then after that, we start getting into free agency a couple weeks thereafter. And I'm keep on saying it. I just want everyone to know, yes, I am missing a couple weeks. First couple weeks of March, I'm out. Not by choice. I'm literally not be able to talk for a couple of weeks. It's something that I'm getting done. So I'll be back soon enough. But yeah, so that is the calendar as it looks. Combine coming up next. Then we start getting into free agency for real. And then it's all draft all the time. So thanks, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. On Friday, be on the lookout for the mock draft. A bunch of people have asked me to do a mock draft with trades. So that is coming on Friday. Steve sneaking in here with more and more. You and Claudia going to next year's draft. Hey, draft plans. So for this year's draft, Claudia and I are going to be live streaming the whole thing right here. Every single pick. We will be here every minute of the draft. 2025? Yeah, I'm going. Certainly. I will be in a tent in line. I'm going to live it like fully. Yeah, I'm going to be there. I've yet to figure out exactly what I'm going to do, like content wise, a long ways away. Who knows everything that changes, but yeah, no, I'll be there. No doubt about it. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much for being here today. Do hope you're having a great day. And as always, go Pack Go.